Oh God, I just make noises.
We are live here on Plus One EXP's Roll for Content channel. My name is Tony Vicenda. I'm Chief Alchemist here at Plus One EXP, which is a weird little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard and skincare alchemy, and the Bardic College of Content Creation. Our dream here at Plus One is to help amazing designers find great players who love their games, and amazing players find great designers whose games they can love. We do that in a lot of different ways. But every February and a lot of other times during the year, we host workshops for designers to talk to them about how they can do their practice better. This is one of our official ZiMo workshops for the year. It is the Layout Rogues Guild with Mike Martens. Mike is an award-winning graphic designer who has published great games like Sunken and the Wassailing of Claus Manor and supplements, and won awards for things like Butter Princess also, too. And has done a lot of work on Gauntlet projects. I'm just trying to make sure I haven't figured out, missed anything.
I don't have them handy, but yeah.
Oh, okay, that's fine. And then Tourist Hole, I hope any award-winning project this year. I don't know if you submitted it yet, Mike, or not, but it's good. You should. Because that deadline is coming up. We got a lot of people who are here joining us today. As always, these are live workshops, so if you've got questions, comments, other things, drop them in the chat. Mike has a great Layout 101 workshop we did on stream over in our workshop list. You should go check out if this comes in overhead. But Mike, today you've got a pretty simple invitation. You're trying to launch your own Rogues Guild, and you're hiring adventurers to come along for it. No, Mike's been a great collaborator. Was super excited. You can tell we did kind of a layout intensive focus this year, which my favorite thing about that is you, Kyle, Latino, and Clayton being in a private chat with me, and me just getting to see y'all ask questions and talk to each other has been wonderful. So, I'm super excited. And then we've got Ix Morty says, I've run Tourist Hole a few times with my group. Big crowd pleaser in the chat also. If you don't have Tourist Hole yet, head over to plus1exp.com, pick up a copy of Tourist Hole. We'll ship it right out to you, and you can play it also too. So, Mike, this is your workshop. I'll be here. I'll be the voice of chat. But anything else we want to say before we just let you start sharing and kick it live?
I mean, you can say whatever you want. For everyone, the reason I'm even a little wily already is that I had toddlers visiting for the weekend along with their mother, and we went to Disneyland yesterday, and it was, oh boy, kind of a total disaster. So my brain is in a weird spot, and but yeah, this is a Rogues Guild, so we're gonna let it fly fast and loose and have some fun. Figuring out how to steal layout and stuff. Yeah, but cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Hit share whenever you're ready, and I'll switch us over to the showcase mode.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
It worked.
Hooray! Welcome, folks, to initiation time. Into the Layout Rogues Guild. We have a motto at the Layout Rogues Guild, and that is, we steal. If you're at home and there's no one else that can hear you, because this is how a rogue would operate, you can say it along with me. Our motto, we steal. None of you said it, or if you did, I don't know, you're already welcome into the guild. No, that's not true, because there's rules. What do we steal? Whatever is best. Why? Why do we steal? It is easy. We're going to find out exactly how easy it is as we go along. The question that often gets asked in these sessions, what happens if we are caught? Your hands will probably be chopped off. Oh God, how do we avoid that? Make it our own. We'll go through a little bit on how we do that as well. Okay, but how? Welcome to your training. The Layout Rogues Guild. Welcome, everyone. Yes.
We do have our first question from Signal Station in the chat, and they want to know whose motto was "We Steal" originally? Because obviously you stole it.
Oh, it's a long line. It's cyclical in nature. Time is a flat circle, as we all know in the Layout Rogues Guild. I don't know if I should be telling you this so early in your initiation, but it was stolen from us. And another version of this timeline
before the world was destroyed.
Mhm.
Also, just so you know, people are attacking Michael for possibly being a cop at this point in time, also too. And so,
Love it. Thank you, everyone, for defending the Rogues Guild. Let's dig into what your tools of the trade are. I think one of the things about layout is that, so I guess I'm going to give you a little backstory here. I didn't make slides for this yet, but no one really starts with a blank page when you're doing layout. No one starts with, when you're writing, you're not starting with a blank page. Yes, you're starting with a blank page, but you have gone through years of training. You have developed all of these tools. There's all kinds of things that are in your brain already. And when you start out writing, what do? You read things and you're like, oh, I like what's written there. I want to write like that. I want the thing that I write to be that. We have models in all of this. Artists do the same thing. If you are more on the art side, right? Like you have references. You take photos of real things, other pictures, that kind of thing, combine them, riff on them, play around with them. We're always stealing. It's how our culture works. Why should layout be different? I think a lot of times we start a layout project and we just open up Affinity Publisher or InDesign or whatever else, Canva, I don't know, do people still just design in Google Slides? Whatever you do. And we just start with a blank page and we just start throwing stuff in there. Especially when we start, it's really helpful to steal things. And one of the things that's fun about it and why it's easy is that the tools are really simple. And the things are not very well secured, to put it that way, right? They are going to communicate to us how they are made. A little anecdote that I would love to visualize this, but I don't have the visuals. But if you look up like catchlights in photography, you can tell how a scene is lit by looking at the reflection in someone's eyes. So if you see like a outline of a circle in someone's eyes in a photograph, you know that they're using a ring light. If you see a big square, you know that it's a softbox. There's things about like the image itself, what we're looking at, that just tell us how it's made. That is no different in layout. So our first tool is a very simple one. It's the ruler. My preferred ruler is not here. I have this clear pica ruler here as well. Whatever kind of ruler you want to use, it's really important. It is going to tell us basically everything that we need to know on how to steal someone's layout. There's some other tools there and other things that we're going to steal, but this is the important one. Everything starts with page size. I think this is kind of underrated, unsung, is deciding what is the size of the book, what is the size of the zine, what are the proportions of it, is a really important thing to decide. Tony has been through this journey with me. Many of my publishers have been through this journey with me, of me deciding at the last minute to change the proportions of everything and essentially having to completely redo my layout. So thinking about this, thinking what we want to steal, why we want to steal it, is an important step. I've got some, these are all essentially vertical layouts. There's some great horizontal ones as well, but in the TTRPG universe, a few examples here. There's Not the End, an NE nominee from a couple years ago, which uses a cool hex system, 8x6 by 8x6, or 8.6 by 8.6, it is square. We've got Lancer. If you've got Lancer, especially the Dark Horse edition, it's just a giant tome. Versus Into the Odd, which is what, half the size, technically a little bit less than half the size. The pages are even a little bit, this is the measurement of the cover, 5.5 by 8 1/3. And then Butter Princess, which Tony mentioned, which is one that I designed, and we won a best layout from the Independent Game Developers Network when it released, which is half of letter, 4.25 by 11. So those are numbers, cool. The pictures look pretty, Mike, fine. Why would I want to steal these? How am I thinking about them? Whenever you're looking at something, think about what it's communicating to you, what these raw numbers are communicating to you. What does the size feel like? So in the case of something that is perfectly square, like I'm using some adjectives here to kind of dig through what it is that kind of sticks out to me in these particular layouts. So with a square layout, it tends to feel like very balanced. It feels open. It feels neutral. It is square. Something like the Into the Odd size book is kind of handy. It feels trim, it feels tight. It's compendious, a fun word. Something like the Lancer book, which is giant, has this very like encyclopedic feel. It's domineering, it feels expansive. And something in that sort of like Butter Princess, the weird butter stick proportions. When we made that decision, we there's some other reasons why we did it as well. But the thing that we were thinking about is it's like a stick of butter, but also it's weird. It feels ephemeral. It feels like I think one of the things that I was taking inspiration from there was actually like the pamphlets for the state fair. It's a game that's set at the state fair. So I want it to look and feel like a thing that you might get at a state fair. And it just stands out. If you've seen it at the +1 booth when it was at the conventions, it just pops up, it reaches up over all the other books. Yeah, so it's kind of a standout layout. So it's something to think about, like as you, one of the things that I am going to recommend is just like playing around with physical copies. When you go to cons for TTRPGs, like look at books, hold them, decide how they feel, think about what they are evoking to you. Grab the ones that you find most interesting and unique, for sure. Go to art bookstores, we'll talk about this more later, that kind of thing, and just really kind of reflect on what the different things are.
Do you have a personal favorite page size that if you're like, I don't know yet, which I know you're saying like figure it out first, like is there a place you typically start but when you're messing around with things?
Yeah, it's a good for tabletop role-playing games, I am starting to index on the size of the trophy books, which is like 7. It's a weird extra measurement.
Yeah, it's called executive or B5, and it is the best size of book. It's my go-to. It's the size of Through the Void. It's a little bit bigger than a zine, like your standard half-page zine. Not quite as voluminous as an A4. I think it gives a lot more breathing room to things, but I'm a sucker for a B5.
Yeah, it's that nice like balance of it's one of the things we're always thinking about when we're doing any kind of, I mean, it's game design in general, right? Is we're thinking about the different modes that people are going to use the book. Sometimes they're going to be sitting and they're going to be reading it. Sometimes they are going to be on their phones. Sometimes they are going to be at a table running a game or playing a game, and that size is really nice in that it opens and it sits on the table very nicely, but then it's also like, have you ever like sat and tried to like in your side chair with your copy of Lancer and been trying to like flip through that? It is not a fun reading experience, but it's a really good reference experience when you are dealing with it at the table. So that's something to think about as well, is like, what is the form that you want people most to be like, what's that mode of experience of the book that you think is most important for what you're trying to communicate? I think Into the Odd, right? Like that smaller size is really nice in that you can carry it everywhere. It's compact. It just feels really great, but it's also, and it's nice to read, but then at the table, like it just wants to be closed. And so, yeah, there's kind of that, their tension there. I think it's one of the things, yeah, we've talked a bit about like, what are the traits of Mythic Bastionland that made it successful at the Ennies last year? And I think one of those things is just the choice of size, right? Like between that and the information design, like it just opens and it sits really nicely at the table. Like it's good for running things and finding information as you are doing that.
This is also really weird, and it's not in this, and I'll release you, but thickness also will matter a lot of the time. Like it won't start out on the page, but like it feels weird to get a really chunkin A4 to me in a way. It doesn't feel bad to get a really chunkin A5 or digest, which is weird. And that just makes a personal preference, right? But there's something about a heavy A4 book that I'm like, give me 2 books, baby. don't overwhelm me. Anyways, I'll release you back to your actual now.
And it's a great point, like as a tangent of like, we talked about this version of the initiation to the Layout Rogues Guild is kind of a 0.8 version. I think the physicality of this is thinking a lot in the digital realm and how we like choose layout, because that's the tools that we're using. But that physicality of like, what is the paper thickness? What is like the size of the cover? All things that you want to look at and you want to measure. paper thickness is a little hard. It's not, I mean, it's a math formula. If you can weigh the book and know the pages, and you can kind of figure out the paper thickness from there, or just comparing it to paper thickness, Anyway, ruler. Let's go back to the ruler. As we're saying, like page size, seriously, nab it first. It's the thing that you kind of want to lock into when you are deciding how to like build a book. I've had to do this with a number of different books where we've just started like laying it out and realized like, oh, we want to go bigger, we want to go smaller. I have run into just issues where I was laying things out wrong for a long time. But everything hinges on page size, especially the next piece, which is margins. I am a huge fan of margins. They are the sacred space of layout design. I like expansive margins, thick margins, as people like to joke. There are reasons for that, which we'll talk about here. But whichever way you go, there's things that it's evoking. So I've got a few examples here. I've got Wander Home on the left, which is a square size as well. And measuring the margins out, took a ruler, measured the margins versus the block of content there. And it's about 3 inches of total margins, 1.5 inches about on each side, and 6.25 inches in the center. So we're about 50% of the page. Or sorry, the relationship, it's not 50% of the page, it's what, a third of the page. But the margins are about 50% the size of the content as a total. So this number helps us understand, this approximation is going to help us understand like what is the relationship, what are we talking about with the margins? Because when you look visually at this next one, Brindlewood Bay, the margins don't necessarily look that much smaller as we're eyeballing the margins, but because of the proportions and because of that bigger block of text in the middle, that proportionality of it becomes tighter. So for Brindlewood Bay, it's about 27%. So total margins 1.5 inches, total content width about 5.5 inches. And then the final example on the right here is a mothership module, another bug hunt. If you bought the big 1.0 version of that, you have another bug hunt, I believe. And that's really small. We have about 1/2 inch of total margins, horizontal at least, and 5 inches of content. So the margins compared to the content is about 10%. What does this mean as far as how do these things make us feel? Like as we look at these, and I think there's probably things that you can just kind of like judge and draw. You're all really smart people of what these different margins do. Here's how I kind of called it out. So big, thick margins make something feel patient. It makes it feel elevated. It makes it feel thoughtful. This sort of like mid-range, the sort of like what Brindlewood Bay is doing, safe, tailored, neutral, very Brindlewood Bay. And then, right, and so this ties into the theme, thematically how we're making these choices. Mothership, and this is true, many mothership modules are laid out with this kind of like proportionality of margin. It feels loaded up. It feels a little bit claustrophobic, and even like fanatic or fanatical, like fanzines, like it's just like we have so much information, we need to get all this information on the page. And if you think about it, paper is relatively cheap. I can lay things out in as many pages as I want, and I could have a 4-page zine that is laid out with these margin sizes, and it's still going to feel like loaded and like this person had so much to say, and it's 4 pages, right? Like it's not that it's a 200-page thing and somebody is just like unloading. Yeah, so again, like thinking about like the tighter those margins, the more dense and crowded the information is going to feel. I mean, this is the basic principle here, versus bigger margins are going to feel like more patient, thoughtful. It's going to make every word feel very important and highlighted. And then again, if you think about these 3 games that we're looking at in this example, we've got Wander Home, we've got Brindlewood Bay, we've got Mothership, and you can kind of see how they connect. Yes, did I write these adjectives based on the games? Fair. As a layout rogue, I am always doing sleight of hand like that. One of your lessons.
But I will say, even your work, you go bigger on white space and margins. I feel like than even the Wander Home example on a lot of things. Like Tourist Hole, it's not margins. Like you've got a design space in the middle, but you so much. And I think like it's super effective and it does a lot. Like I mean I know that you went through and picked these out, but I also like I'm a text maximalist, but I do a lot of OSR and dungeon writing, and it is like I want that cramped like
Hmm.
feeling on the page of like this is full and teeming with something, and like there is so much here, and but you have to pick through what you want to do. Like I'm pulling dungeon vibes into that, and I'm not even giving you safe places to put your fingers, as I feel like you've commented in the past. Like you're gonna have to cover
Yes.
something up a little bit. But we got H Monk says for Wander Home example, in their opinion, the margins are also great for both the style and content for how the book is bound. Again, going back to that, like some of this will come out in the physicality of the overall book also.
Yeah, for sure. Um, the other thing about margins, as kind of a side note here, is that at the top of this, I said margins are sacred space. One of the things you'll notice as you start like hacking these books and measuring, like just again, pull out your ruler, measure how like large these spaces are. When you look at images in really well laid out books, the important content of the image is generally going to fall within the margins. It's something that artists are really smart about once you give them the page size and especially give them the margin size, is like hitting that space of what's important. So the examples here we have are dialect. You see the page layout or the body text layout on the left there, and some of their art on the right, which is also using text, illustrated text, but it all fits within the margin space. I know that that is true with Brindlewood Bay. I know that's true with a lot of different things that you start poking at. With our page size determined and our margins determined, as we measure that, we get to, we've kind of built our nest egg, our nest. Everything is going to sit within. It's column time. When it comes down to layout, we are primarily talking about how things fall into columns. It's what do we call the grid is kind of what we're building here behind the scenes. But columns are the heart of the thing. They've been the heart of the thing for a very, very long time. I have an example here in this upper right-hand corner. This comes from the Newspaper Designer's Guidebook. It's like edition 4. It's ancient. This is what I learned to lay out from. And in newspaper layouts, they use a lot of columns. So even this is showing the breakdown of, say, a 3-column grid, 4-column, 5-column, 6-column, and even 7-column. And one of the things that you can see as we move across this from fewer columns to more columns is there's a lot more that we can do when we have more columns, right? We can add sidebars, we can have like pull-out sections, we can have more art in more clever spaces, sometimes getting bigger sizes in secondary art. So yeah, there's a lot of ways. I would really recommend this book if you're getting into layout and just kind of want to understand it. It really there's a newer edition than the one that I have sitting on my shelf. But it's really helpful. A lot of visual examples, a lot of like worky book kind of things that you can kind of quiz yourself, so on and so forth. The other example here is, what is this? Making and Breaking the Grid, I think. Which is a book that is very commonly cited, which is of course why I forgot it. And what you're seeing here, you're seeing a lot of text overlaid. And what they have here are 6 columns, and they're laying out multiple pages onto the same 6 columns. So you can also see that as we get more columns, it's not necessarily that things are falling into very specific columns. It's that we are using those as the edges to line things up. A little quizzy question here for you. You've seen it floating in the corner of this slide. How many columns does the actual slide here use? Can you tell? Tony, as the stand-in for the chat and the voice of the crowd, can you tell how many columns are used in the layout for these slides?
Do we have a gutter on these or no gutter because it's digital?
There's kind of a gutter. I mean, are we saying gutters or alleys? We'll get into all of this.
Yeah,
in a
the
second,
middle. Do we have a gap in the middle?
There's not something like that. This is a full slide. What would be the gutter is essentially on the left here, where we have the Layouts Rogues Guild logo.
I'm gonna say, so I feel like it's a multiple of 6. I'm gonna say 12.
It is 6. You're right. But yeah, it's a good point. You could divide this into 12, right? And it would function effectively the same as 6, but with some more options. As we get into the bigger numbers, things get complicated and gets to a point where it's like, what are we even doing with this grid? Because we have so many of them. And especially once these spaces in between called alleys or gutters, they start getting bigger than the columns themselves, and then that just looks weird on your page. It's tough to lay out. But you can see, even though I've laid this slide out with images at an angle, I'm essentially using a 6-column grid here to kind of like eyeball and understand, how do I want to fit things? What are these guides for how I want to be placing layout content? In TTRPG realm, the most common columns that you're going to find are 1, like in the example of Aegon, basically just a book with art. 1 column, yeah, it is what it is. Or 2, the split here. This is from Monstrous. I think it is a very common size, especially with the OSR realm. And then we do occasionally see 3, like we saw in the 2nd edition of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Don't get mad at me if I
look at man, what great margins on number 3, man. Those are perfect margins as far as I'm concerned.
But if you think about it, I mean, this is one of the things that's interesting, right? Like, Dungeons and Dragons looks a lot like a 70s technical manual. Like, it is drawing from those ideas of like, oh, we're gonna have, this is what margins look like. A lot of, like, I was looking at old technical manuals because I was wondering this. It gave me that feel of like, is that what they're trying to do? And started looking at these manuals, and I was like, oh yeah, they're 3 columns a lot. Then the classic like NASA style guide, everything's in 2 columns or 3 columns. AD&D, everything's in 2 columns or 3 columns. Like, it's very standard, especially for that time, to be doing things in 3 columns. And you can also see here, for what it's worth, that even though this is a 3-column layout, we can still box things and say, oh, we're going to have something become 4 columns. Actually, that's the topic of the next slide here. So another kind of game that you can play at home here is we've got Arc from Mamatos. And we've got 2 different layouts here. In one, we see that the big chunk of content is falling into 2 columns. In the second one, in this B section, we see that it's falling into 3 columns. And then we also have like this top part that is 1 column. We've got this top part is 1 column as well. Is this a matter of, are there so many different types of pages and different column layouts? What do you think, Tony?
What was the question again? Sorry, I was.
The question is Mamatos using multiple grids, multiple counts of columns for the layout on multiple pages, or is it the same one? And if it's the same one, what is it?
Oh man, that's a great question. I'm gonna wait till Emily responds. It's 6 again.
Ba-bum, ba-bum. Yes, it's 6. So one of the things as we are trying to steal a layout is we can kind of eyeball it. And it's not least common denominator. I'm not a math person, sorry, maybe it is. But we're trying to look for like, what are the fewest number of columns that we can fit all of the variants that we're looking at within a particular book or a layout scheme. So in this case, right, we've got 1, we've got 2, and we've got 3. that doesn't fit into 4, it doesn't fit into 5, at least from a symmetrical standpoint, but it does fit into 6. So we know that we can build the same design system as Mamatos is using in Arc with 6 columns. And transitioning here. Any questions about columns? We'll kind of like go a little bit deeper into like breaking this stuff apart. But I think it's pretty self-explanatory at this point. As far as terminology, feel free to interrupt me if there is something that pops up.
Yeah, if there's some questions, feel free to toss them in.
The spaces in between the columns are what we call alleys or gutters. In Affinity software, they are called gutters. It kind of switches from thing to thing. People have their preferences. Whatever, I don't care. They're the space in between columns. And then we want to be thinking about the space in between lines of text from a horizontal standpoint. And that is what we call leading or the baseline grid. Baseline grid is effectively a thing that just like all text aligns against it. So if you are running multiple columns, I would generally recommend just setting a baseline grid. How do you set a baseline grid? The Johan Noor technique, as Clayton Notskin is determined to call it, is to make a bunch of variants, print them out, and see what looks good. And kind of like work your way on that and kind of go progressively tightening it up to decide. If you just want to steal somebody's layout, another book or whatever, again, you can just measure it. You can get a pica ruler, you can measure it that way, or you can just kind of do the ruler measurements within your layout software. You can always have rulers on the side and be dragging stuff around to make all of those measurements and make the exact determination based on everything that's being used. We do want to mix and match. That's how we make things our own. So it's worth exploring different ways to do it, playing around with it yourself. But you can, at any point, if you're just like, I don't know, this space looks really good, I just want that spacing, I can't figure out the rest, grab a ruler, you can figure it out. Same thing with alleys and gutters. There's like rules of thumb. Different people have different rules. Should it be like 1.5 the size of the text, or 1? Whatever. Just measure what looks good and then transfer it into your layout. Oh, and then finally, when we're talking about the grid, you're saying, Mike, most of what we've been talking about are vertical things, columns. Are there rows? There must be rows. It's called a grid. Yes, there are rows. They are used in this. Maybe I can flip over really quick. I did use rows in this particular layout scheme. And then you will find in books that there are what are called flow lines, which don't necessarily anchor to specific rows. I don't know. There's all kinds of ideas on this. But it's essentially where you want certain elements to hit across the entire book. This is something that, again, if you are just trying to like rip something off completely, you might want to measure where the flow lines are hitting. It can be good as a reference, especially as you're learning to understand how people are spacing things. But this is mostly for this is mostly important for the internal consistency of your book. So wherever you lay it out in chapter 1, set the flow lines. And again, those are going to be measured by a ruler that you're just dragging down, and determine those and duplicate those across those same pages. This is where we get in master pages and all of that kind of nonsense. But as long as you know the measurements, you've got what you need to reproduce that. So how does this look when we are actually trying to like dissect a page? I've got Deathmatch Island here. And what I do is I will grab a bunch of pages that feel distinct to me and have a lot of distinct elements, and then I'll just start trying to figure it out. Just like we did with the Mamatos with Arc. Trying to judge, okay, how many columns is this operating on? Are they using their, I think Deathmatch Island is an example where these are on slightly different grids. This one is maybe a 5 or a 6 column grid, while these examples are in 4. So you can kind of figure out like what are the commonalities between these things that look very different and look distinct, and figure it out. You can pull, an easy thing that you can do is just pull screenshots. If you've got the PDF, take screenshots, or just take the image and drag it into your layout software and just use the rulers that are in there. You can also do this physically if you have the physical edition. And then, as you can see on the right here, this is just me like playing around and trying to recreate the layout of Deathmatch Island. So I know what the column size is here, and the rest just kind of falls into place. Yeah. And then you get to find what's wild about it is you get to find all the little sneaks and tricks and tweaks that your favorite layout artists did in order to actually get the book produced and look good. So there's a lot of like, I don't know if I want to like call out any particular person, but there's some cheats in Deathmatch Island for as pretty as it looks.
I mean, they didn't lay it out, but John Harper is in the chat, so if you want to ask questions,
oh God,
you can also.
But yeah, like anyone who does this, right? Like there are things that you have to do, little cheats that you do with sizing that are maybe not ideal, but are just going to make things work out in the long run.
Alex Morty does demand that you show us at least one trick.
One trick. I don't know. Oh, sure. So one of the things that I noticed as I was breaking this apart is I just couldn't get. I couldn't get. Oh yeah, here. This is a little pixely because it's a screenshot. As I was playing around with it, I had the text that I copied out of the PDF. I couldn't get it to match up with the standard. This is using Helvetica. I couldn't get it to match up with the standard sizing and spacing. And what I realized is the kerning is getting really crunchy here. In order to, I don't know why, but it does. Like it's a bit tighter than we might ideally like. I'm sure there's a reason for it. Yeah, I think that's a simple one. And so you start to see that, right? Like, because you'll be, even if you know the font, if someone has told you what the font is and you know the column grid, you know all of that, you're still going to run into these situations where it's like, I just can't get this to fit. And that's where, you notice like, oh, there's this going on, or it's not exactly this font, or it's some other variant of it. There's even things that I did wrong in transferring between these. Like you can see, like I have my text lined up against the column here, as opposed to in the actual layout, the column is determining the box. But yeah, there's different things, especially like when you start looking at the headings. We'll talk about like type styles and all of that kind of thing as well in a bit. But yeah, you start seeing, I don't know if I wouldn't call them flaws, but yeah, like the things that you wouldn't expect. Like it's not, and I guess the point here is it's not all super tight. It's not all like, even something that looks like super clean, super efficient, like Deathmatch Island, is going to have things where little things have been done to make things fit in a clean way that break this kind of system of cleanliness underneath the hood.
Yeah, I mean, and to be clear, this is not you like taking a beautiful game and it is you critiquing it, but it's you critiquing in the truest sense of like you're doing a work study on it and inspecting those things. I've seen you do this with your own work, and like you'll call it out to us when we're in development on a project of like yeah, here's a dirty little thing I did behind the scenes.
Yes.
To make something work, right? Like this is part of the process. Like so people need to hear that like really cleanly as like this is how you customize something, make it your own, and figure out how to get it where you want it to go.
Yeah, exactly. And this is probably a good transition that like there's maybe some of you who are smartasses sitting there and are like, oh, this is cool, Mike. Like, coming up with a grid system. But I'm more of a Morkborg weirdo. I like things that are just all over the place, and wherever they're gonna be like, they're gonna look like this. It's just wild. It is out there. F the grid. We don't need it. We never wanted it in the first place. We call this breaking the grid. And breaking the grid doesn't mean that the thing is gridless. Now, I looked at a bunch of Morkborg and I was like, oh, can I figure out how Johan did this? Could I recreate Morkborg if I wanted to? One of the things that I think is interesting about Morkborg, maybe this is putting, maybe this is the hot discourse out of this, is that a lot of like Morkborg stuff does the colors, does the inks, does the wild fonts, but there's still something off about it. Like, it doesn't feel like Morkborg. How can you have something that doesn't feel like Morkborg that follows all of the other rules if there's no grid? And so that's what got me curious. Like, is there essentially a grid that's kind of like being broken and being twisted here? And again, like, I grabbed a bunch of pages that initially looked distinct, and started looking at them and breaking up, like, okay, like, how might I lay all of this out? And what I generally found here is that everything is kind of fitting into a 7-column grid. Now, when we're breaking the grid, we might say, okay, we lay it out clean, but let's move this to make this fit more. Let's angle this in this way. We're kind of using it as a guideline. And yeah, so I would say, like, even if you want to break the grid, it doesn't mean that it's gridless. Now, I will note, if you are sitting at home and are saying, well, actually, in episode 237 of the Dungeon Dung Beetles podcast, Johan said he didn't use anything like the grid for this. Oh my God, we don't care as the Layout Rogues Guild. We are trying to capture these things and make them our own and make something that looks like it. So I kind of don't care if the layout artist made it on a grid or not. I would believe that some layout artists are good enough and experienced at what they do that this, like, the grid here is just something that is just in their head. Like, they do not need to lay it out. They're not, especially when they're trying to break the idea of a grid and doing a more formless layout or something that feels more formless. They are just kind of laying things out based on the muscle memory, based on the pattern that they have trained themselves around. That doesn't matter to us. It's like, we're not trying to necessarily, in our first step in doing layout, to be that good at something, right? In the same way that, like, a great artist who really knows their form is not leaning on a reference every time they draw something. The same way that you, as a writer, as you are coming up with a new original work, are not always going and reading specific. You'll do research and that kind of thing, so take this with a grain of salt, but you're not like trying to learn how to write every time, and you're not really thinking about actively all of these ideas, all of these rules. But somebody who is trying to replicate what you've done, it helps to kind of be thinking about these systems and how things fit into these systems. And with that, we are going to leave our rulers behind. No, we'll bring our rulers with us because they are permanent tools that we are carrying with us. Yeah. I'm just going to soldier on.
There we go. You're good. Yeah. We all agree that the Dungeon Dung Beetle cast can eat it, and so Retrofit.
There was that whole controversy, and they apologized for it, but it didn't really sound genuine. I don't know.
Yeah. The Emily threw out when we were talking about odds and ends throughout as we were talking about the grid elements that, yeah, sometimes when you're a rogue you have to cheat it. Cheating the grid happens. Retrofit tossed out I think a really great real world experience of some of that is that reminds them of when their favorite garbage bag company shrunk their garbage bags by 1/8 of an inch and saved big garbage bag a bunch of money, but it wouldn't fit their garbage can anymore. That is great
analogy for page size versus margins, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you are changing the margins, everything, and keeping the same page size, everything is off now. Yeah.
Cool.
Let's talk about tool number 2, the picker. What does the picker steal? The picker steals the color palette. This is pretty obvious, I think, but yeah, like find things that you like, steal the colors in them. Planet Raygun, which is my like retro sci-fi heist game in the Carved from Brindlewood system that's in development. I found this is the door of a airplane. I like a little kit plane. And I said, that's cool. I love how that thing is dinged up. Like this just really fits the vibe. It looks like it was probably a late 60s, early 70s kind of thing. I'm just going to nab that palette. So took a photo of it, pulled it into Photoshop and just started like picking at, you're never going to get like you can't just like pick the space because in a photo, especially, there's a lot of different shades and even hues and that type of thing, but just kind of dragging around and trying to find the color that's the color that I'm seeing that I want out of that, and building a palette out of it. And so yeah, like you can see there's a little bit of variance between the original source material and what I ended up with here, but essentially like it is just the door of this beat up plane that I took a photo of. And then I'm pulling that into my layout. So my heading is using the yellow, and I just mess around with a lot of this and kind of decide what works for different things. And then once I have this palette, I'm actually pushing this palette out to the artists that I'm hiring and showing like, here's the palette. Like now you take this palette and develop something new out of it, like use this as the grounding for it, but let's expand this out. Let's expand the color story out, play with different, we don't need to be strictly just 5 colors. A lot of times with palettes, it's kind of the number that we're shooting for is 5. But there's a lot of variance in that because there's certain colors that we're going to need, right? Like we need the color of the page, we need the color of the ink. We might do more, we might do less. There might be variance for what we're doing, but 5 is a really good, nice thing to index around. I would say in general, when it comes to color palettes, it's really helpful to case the joint before you know it's the joint. So I keep a Pinterest board of just when I see color combinations that are cool in a piece of art, throw it on that Pinterest board. And then it's there. I don't know what projects any of these photos are necessarily going to match up with, but I've got them ready. I've got some ideas of color combinations. So Pinterest is part of my standard flow. I also use this site, Designspiration, is really cool in how it works, in that it's sort of like Pinterest with colors and palettes attached to it. So you click on any image and it gives you a sort of like, it automatically like pulls a 5-color palette out of it. And then you can like grab that little pie chart. You can hit that little pie chart and then it opens up a screen like this one that I've got here that has a 5-color palette. And it shows you a bunch of things that are generally fitting within that palette. The URL, and this is common in a lot of color picker tools, we'll look at some other ones in a second here, will actually have the hex codes in the URL. So these little number combinations are the computer digital codes for these colors. And so I can adjust these. And again, if I'm working with an artist, I can just drop this URL. They've got the color codes then, and they can see some examples of how it fits. I think it's really useful to, as we start, especially with color, and we're thinking about stealing things, is looking at not just that color combination, but how does this work in the real world? Like, what are some things that I can expect out of the art that I'm creating out of this palette, out of the layouts that I'm creating out of this palette? And the cool thing about this site is that I can change these colors and everything underneath is going to change as well. So I can get a sense of how I adjust things. You may have noticed in the wassailing stuff, with each of the annual holiday specials, we're changing the palette. And this is essentially me just like, I came up with the palette in Designspiration for Wassailing of Kloss Manor. And so I'm just kind of tweaking it, playing around with different colors. Part of what we're doing with those zines is kind of experimenting with what the final big book form will look like. So yeah, leaning into the different themes each season, each year, but experimenting. The other thing that I would highlight here is that when we're stealing colors, similar to page size and making sure that we know what page size is because it's going to hinge on everything, checking accessibility contrast, and making sure it's where you want it to be. There are different views of how much you want to accommodate in different forms, that kind of thing. There are different standards, whether it's WCAG AA or AAA. AAA is going to be stricter. And there's things to keep in mind when you're talking about accessibility as far as web versus print, that kind of thing. But it is very worthwhile as you are picking and pulling these palettes to be checking the contrast values. This is Web AIM color checker, I believe. If you just search for that, it will pop up. It's the standard tool. This is also built into a lot of software nowadays as well, or things like it. And you can kind of tweak, you can see the sliders in this example here. So I might have a hue, particular color that I like, a hex value. And what I can do here is I can adjust that lightness. And generally, as I go darker, the contrast level is going to, especially if I'm going on a white background, if I'm going darker, of course, that contrast ratio is going to get higher. So I'm going to start passing more of those standards as I move. So be checking that as you're going, because again, you don't want to like lock in and say, this is it, I've stolen it, it's great. That's what I'm going to go forward with. And then get to the end of the project and realize, oh, this happened to us recently on a project, a particular, and it's because of a type style that snuck in, but we had to go back and change this after the fact, after we had kind of like set and done the layout for a book. So again, you can learn from my mistakes, stealing things in a bad way. This is a good thing to always be checking and making sure that you're not just eyeballing it, that you are looking at it, again, essentially through someone else's eyes using these mathematical schemes.
And there are like, it comes up regularly on the Between Two Karens like podcast. It's one of the few podcasts that will really dive into the art and physicality and layout of adventures and other books as they come out. But Yohai is partially colorblind, like very lightly, not as bad as his parents. But it is one of the biggest things that if those numbers are just slightly off and not looked at, like it becomes unreadable to him, even though his color differentiation is largely fine, except for some very close tones. And there's a lot of people who go diagnosed on color blindness a lot of their life. Like they just won't realize there are words in a section because it is just one flat color to them. And so, he will get on and boost contrast around in order to make it work sometimes. But like you are making it harder on people,
yes,
which you shouldn't be doing. But also, like, if you can't do it for consideration of others, they are missing out on your work also too. So like do it for consideration of yourself if you can't do it for consideration of others. But yeah,
and you'll find, again, like pulling this into like the thievery theme, you will find, especially as you like move out of TTRPG space and are looking at like very like contemporary and cool layouts, there's a lot of things that are really pushing the edge on these contrasts. Like a page that feels like very soft and quiet often has like very low contrast ratios. So there's decisions to make, but exactly to Tony's point, like you are reducing the accessibility, which means reducing your total audience and the number of people that can enjoy it as you start pushing those numbers. Now you might have a color that you still like, but then that's where you got to think about like size. So one of the things is like less contrast is okay with larger, it becomes more okay with larger text. So thinking about like, oh, I really like the way this color looks on white, but the contrast level is no good for body. Is there still a way to use it? You might be able to make your headings bigger. I think one of the things that we ran into in that like mistake I was alluding to is that it was a particular size of the typeface that was really the issue. We used that color at a good contrast ratio pretty consistently, but it was a particular treatment of the type that was really creating the issue. So we bumped that up, the contrast level up on that to make that easier. All that said, their tools have come a long way as far as this is all concerned. A couple other ones that I would recommend checking out would be Coolers and what used to be called Cooler K. So the first one is Coolers, like Coolors, and the second one is Adobe Color, which used to be called Kuler, also Cooler. And both of these allow you to upload an image, and then similar to what I was describing with Design Inspiration, they will pull a palette, and you can there are more options within these tools for like how you build the palette off of the image. And then there's actually, Coolers is pretty cool in that you can, I think it's under this little glasses icon. If you play around with it, you can actually see what your palette looks like with different types of color blindness, to go back to what Tony was saying. So there's a lot of ways to check and get an idea of like, you know how it looks to you, ways to understand better how it's going to look to a broader audience, and making your tweaks and your color adjustments up front in order to accommodate that audience. And yeah, even like, you see the slider here within this like image picker thing. This will flip through different automated palettes. So I can kind of like flip through and decide like, what is the tone that I want? What is the thing that I actually want to steal from this image? What's the color combination that is attracting me to this image? And that I think is going to be like really usable for what my design work is going to be. That's what I've got on colors and palettes. The third tool that I have here is Arcane Wisdom.
A ruler, a picker, and then some Arcane Wisdom just tossed in.
Yes. This is our third and final tool. What does Arcane Wisdom steal? Type styles, type fonts, all of those kind of things. There's no way to just like mathematically measure what it is. We kind of have to know. So how do we know? A few things. I would recommend the couple articles versions of essentially the same article here. The site on this is Matei Ladin's site, which is betterwebtype.com. Does like a course and that kind of like workshops is what they're doing for a business. But this is a really nice article, as well as Monotype, which is a font repository, I guess. It has an article that's a guide to type styles. You can also find good books about this, that kind of thing. But what both of these articles do is they dig into like, what are those like big categories of fonts, so that when you are looking at examples, reading these maybe once a year, a couple times a year, whatever, as you're learning, and starting to be able to recognize like some of the key fonts. So Garamond, Futura, Helvetica, I don't know, you could get into Baskerville. What's the difference between Times New Roman and Baskerville? Can I eyeball that? This even goes a level up, so we're getting into geometric sans serifs, like that kind of thing. The more that you can just kind of eyeball something and recognize like, oh, that looks like Futura. Maybe it's not Futura, it's some other version of it, it's a clone of it, it's a copy of it. There's other variants involved in this. The more that you can recognize that, the easier it's going to be to steal stuff, and that you can search for those kind of fonts and maybe get the exact match, or get something that's, especially as you understand how typeface is built, understand what are the things that you're reacting to, what are the things that you like. Another way to do this is the cheating way. I don't know, it's all right. There's nothing wrong with cheating. We're the Layout Rogues Guild. Fonts in Use is a cool site where you will find a bunch of examples of things. It's kind of like Pinterest of like fonts in use. Oh, that's why they call it fonts in use. And you will see these different examples, and the fonts have been called out for whatever is being used in that particular thing. So you can do searches for specific things. I don't think it's really comprehensive as far as that's concerned. I've done it for like thematic stuff, like eras. Especially I've been doing a lot within like 60s, late 60s, early 70s, trying to evoke those. So like understanding a little bit better, like what were, yeah, what are different combinations of fonts that are in use. I wanted to call this out. One of my favorite things within fonts in use is they've got every title card from the first season of Batman the Animated Series.
Oh my gosh.
Just a lot of fonts. And every font is identified. And that's a fun one to just like, if you want to get a sense for what this resource does, like look up that. This is also like a really cool breakdown, and just kind of like flipping through and thinking about like, oh, how do fonts, similar to what we've been talking about before, right? Like, how does the font affect how I feel about this, and like what are the themes and the mood that it's trying to evoke? And so you get a better idea of like, oh, these are the kinds of fonts that I might be using with this kind of theme, with this kind of tone.
Odds and Ends calls out that you can add to fonts in use also. Luna P, who does a lot of layout for us and other folks, does this for most of the games they work on. So we can make this a better resource for all of us also too. I asked chat, I'm going to ask chat out loud also too. If you got a favorite font or font family, drop it in the chat. Let us know what it is. Mike, you got
It's just Futura for what it's.
it's all Futura.
If you have a different opinion,
you're wrong.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Brandon family, which is, it's a boring ass font, but I honestly just really love it for its functionality. I don't use it in design a whole lot anymore, but back when I had to just do a lot of consistently plain text design, it's one of my just like, it's a comfort font for me. It's no Rock Lobster, but it gets the job done.
Yeah. I worked with Brandon in one of my like corporate settings. It sounds like a person, but like that was like our brand font was Brandon. And so that's another thing is like, if you work in a corporate setting, you're doing freelance work, that kind of thing. Just figure out like, what is your brand? What does that brand use as a font, and just kind of like file it away.
The reason Brandon is great for, cause it was a font I chose for like the entire organization, but there are so many variations on Brandon font that are readily available, which means you can do a lot with it also too, which was one of my main reasons for doing it. John Harper also says Future is correct. Also too, just FYI. Odds and Ents says been using Ravenhell variable lately. Saw it in this presentation. It's fun. Yeah, lots of good ones.
A new thing to keep an eye on are, I don't think that this is going to pop up, but are variable fonts. And the nice thing about variable fonts is that you can often set a number of variables in a variable way on them. So you can essentially like, there's a wide spread of different fonts that you can use. Yeah, that would be within the typeface, right? So you can add weight to it, so you can make it thicker. You've seen actually all of this is Ravenhell. So I'm using a very thin weight in places, like there's ability to kind of like use these more rounded corners, as well as then I think to like, extend the flourish, all of that kind of thing within it. So variable fonts are a really cool thing to use to get, don't want to look at that quite yet, to get variants. We talk a lot. So my advice on selecting fonts is that you just want to create contrast is the big thing. So you want your heading to look distinct from the body, and you do that with size, you do that with color, and you can do that with weight and that kind of thing. You can also do it with the typeface itself. So thinking about that is also helpful. And the rule of thumb on that is, for what it's worth, a serif and a sans serif. So something that's got the fun flourishes and something that doesn't. And you can go either way. Yeah, I mean, people have different opinions on what is right for what situations and that kind of thing. But yeah, the key to, I think, font pairings is really just like contrast that then feels coherent. What feels coherent? Again, steal it. Look at what other people are doing and steal what they're doing. One other note on stealing things when it comes to fonts. A lot of times, especially, it's not as common in tabletop role-playing games. It's one of the nice hearing that y'all are putting stuff on fonts in use, but pretty common within the sort of like art publishing scene is to just tell people what the fonts in use are within the book. So always look at the title pages of books that you think are really cool to see if it's there. This is Wanderhome. there it is. Titles in Ruritania and Luminari, body in Arno Pro. And then I just grabbed those fonts and look, it looks like I'm making Wanderhome.
Yeah. It's really funny. I remember when Wander Home released, there was a lot of weird criticism around this particular choice, like to include the fonts, and it was such a weird little thing to pick in on. I don't know, I don't remember what it was, but I remember there were people who were like, "Why would you include that?" But like, it is so helpful, and I really wish more people would do it because it does save a lot of time for other creators. And this was not the intent with Wander Home even at the time, but like for us, like we'll include all that stuff in a creator's kit so that people can just be like, I want it to look like this, but it just makes sense to include it in the document you're creating in the same way you would do like art reference for like archival art or public domain work.
Yeah, and it's a nice way to show appreciation for the people who design those fonts, for the foundries or the individual people. A lot of times we're doing stuff in tabletop RPGs on a budget, and so we're not necessarily getting the big foundries for our productions and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a nice way to just kind of give a shout out to other creatives that are making cool things. But yeah, I would add like, this is pretty common practice when you get into like art publishing, that kind of thing. You see it, yeah, a lot. You'll also see, for what it's worth, we were talking about the physicality of things. You can often find who the book was printed with. So if there's a particular printing technique, that kind of thing that you're really interested in, a type binding, you can often find who did it and reach out and check their rates and see if it works for you, that kind of thing.
John also calls out on a PDF, you can put it in the document properties also too.
Oh yeah. All kinds of ways that we can share what these things are and make it easier for other people to grab inspiration, and so on and so forth. When it comes to stealing fonts, one piece of advice that I would give you is to keep inventory of what you need. What are you grabbing? Just saying like, oh, I like that font. Like in the case of Wanderhome, right? Like just saying like, oh, Luminari, cool, I'm stealing Luminari. What am I stealing Luminari for? How is Wanderhome using Luminari? They kind of spell it out for us in a way that I think is not common within the publishing industry, in saying what are the titles, what are the bodies. That often be just something that we would figure out on our own. But what I would say is set up your inventory. This is the style guide that we made for the Between behind the scenes. And we essentially like, and this is how I've been doing projects lately, is I'm gonna need heading 1 through 4. I've been doing this heading 1.5, which I don't want to get into. So I know I'm gonna need 4 sizes of heading. I know I'm gonna need my like basic paragraph or my body content. I know I'm gonna need a bulleted list. And then we make a survey of what are the other things that we're going to need, right? Like in the case of the Between, it's a Carve from Brindlewood thing. So I know that there are certain things that I need to highlight, the complexity of the mystery, the question. So I'm creating some styles that are kind of custom for what I know I'm going to build. And as I'm looking at, I might show you guys if we have time or we want to go, if people want to hang out and look at some stuff, where I was pulling some of the inspiration for the design system and the Between from. And so like, what am I assessing? Like it helps to know what it is that, like, when is the job complete, essentially? When have I stolen what I need to steal? I can always improvise, but like, what are those things that this book is doing? Trying to recognize like, as far as heading sizes are, think of it as it's the outline of your document. Hopefully you're doing this in your Word or Google Docs or that kind of thing, is using the styles there, using headings, thinking about the outline and the structure. So as essentially heading sizes are your outline. So as I am, a heading 2 should always be within a heading 1 section is the way to think about it. And yeah, writing things is like that way, as opposed to just bolding things that you want to be bigger or want to be the heading of a section. Like, use the styles that are in place.
Keegan hates how absolutely feral I am about Google Docs and that I use none of the built-in tools.
Come on, Tony.
So I should. It's so helpful. There are ways you can connect what is in your Google Doc to flow into masters you've created in some software programs. Like you're going to go have to in and do the actual layout
Yeah.
work, but it can get things to the page significantly faster if you do some of those different elements. Like depends on what software you're using, all those kind of things. But good. Retrofit also called out that the Aurora Club skipped a gaming session just to talk about the Between Design System manual. Also too,
Oh,
just as a shout out.
well, thanks. I think this is really helpful. We like to do this with your projects that you're doing. Maybe that's something that Tony, you and I can kind of talk about in the future. I think more folks are doing it. Ben did it for contributor content for Triangle Agency. So it's something that's I think folks are starting to understand, like, oh, there's use in this in like being able to share it with the community, but also as we're thinking about like how we build these things out, we have different creators. It's more common to have like a conceptual layout person and then more production layout people. So how do we just make sure that everything is communicated and that we are like not playing it by ear? I don't know. I'm the systems person who really loves this stuff. So that, yeah, it is.
Yeah,
what
we
it
talked
is.
about that as the workshop for this. I love the idea. I think a lot of designers do want that also too, and I think it's like I always think about it also as like reducing like it, I always have I'm not an Einstein in the sense of a number of things, but also not in the sense of I wear the exact same thing every day. But my outfits exist in a really tight range at any given point in time because once I have a system of dress,
Hmm.
I will just vary one of the items in that. Like, I mean, I change everything every day, but like,
Yeah.
I will like it's just variations on that theme for about 6 to 9 months, and then other things, like a new thing will be introduced. But like, I can watch the evolution in pictures from like dress code to dress code for me. And I'm not neurodivergent at all. And I think like the design system things, like being able to watch how those evolve and see how intentional changes are getting made are so important in that. But again, it does so much work to free you up to do the more intensive thing you want to do once that system is set.
Mhm. And I think like if you're a first time creator, I will call this out is just documenting this stuff in some way. Like it doesn't have to be this like nicely laid out document, but just like grabbing a Word doc, even in a notebook. Like I use a lot of recoloring within Affinity Publisher for different like visual elements, that kind of thing. I've got all my numbers like just jotted down in there. So again, it's not like this formal system that I've created, but it's something that I know is there. And so my note to new creators is people are going to ask you to make more stuff or to make other versions of stuff. And again, what are my mistakes is I have ventured out into doing this. One of them is I don't remember how I made some of this stuff. And so I have to figure it out. And then I'm like, I'm stealing my own layout, to go back to time being a flat circle and who stole the motto if we steal. I'm going back to my own stuff and trying to deconstruct it and figure out like, okay, what was it that I did here in order to like get this effect, to get this look? What are the colors that I use? So drop it down. And even if, yeah, it's a piece of paper that you put at the bottom of a cabinet or something like that, it's useful to have. Yeah. We're kind of pulling up towards the end of what I've got like formally prepared here. So I just wanted to give a quick example of, you've seen kind of the color palette stuff, just an example of a recent project that I've been working on and how I've done that. So the project is Arkham Herald, which is Ollie Jeffrey came up with this, and it is Cthulhu stuff set in the 70s, and you are playing newspaper reporters. And so it's recasting the sort of like grime of Lovecraftian stuff into the grime of the 70s. Really cool, really sharp concept. Alex Rabitsky, I think Ray Rich, Jason Cordova, that whole crew of folks have been like working at like forming this and building this out. And I'm coming in to kind of like build out that visual identity for it. And I know that I needed something that just feels grimy, that creates a real distinction, like it pulls you out of that era. Like when we think of Lovecraft stuff, there's like there's a very particular image and aesthetic that's coming to mind, and we're trying to pull you into the 70s with this game. So how can I pull you into that? So I just started digging into old alternative newspapers from the time. I wanted to know both like, what do mainstream newspapers look like? What do alternative newspapers look like? Because the mainstream stuff is a little bit too like straight collar, like formal and old. Like it feels like something that might have existed in the 1890s, right? Like some of these mastheads are the same mastheads that masthead is the kind of like logo piece of the newspaper, are the same ones that existed in the 19th century. And we're trying to bring you maybe 100 years into the future now. And so what are some more contemporary styles? And started digging into, found this cool like alternative UK, this is actually like tongue-in-cheek here for what it's worth.
No, I figured.
This is a cool like counterculture newspaper from the UK called Friends. They changed their spelling in later in the 70s, but yeah, there's things that I really liked about this. The newspaper print, I liked the way that they were using these sort of like, I should probably cover that up or we don't look at it too closely. This weird like spot art as a what's called spot color as well, laid in here. Was looking at Oz is kind of the big classic UK alternative newspaper, cultural newspaper. So looking at what they're doing with images and with text that feels like newspapery, but at the same time feels kind of like dirty and underground and grimy, as well as, yeah, just looking at like what were some like smaller newspapers that were trying to get their name out and like picking up a more contemporary style. So you can kind of see over here, this is kind of where we're at as far as the visual concept is. And so when it comes to like fencing these things and kind of making them our own, I'm taking a combination of different things and I'm pulling it together, but it's still like, yeah, it's very much Friends for what it's worth. I'm looking at, I did a 3-column format because more columns is just going to be not right, but like we pushed up the size on this. We were thinking that this was going to be the size of the trophy or what the between is going to be, which I'd also convinced folks to push up. And I negotiated even bigger because I wanted it to feel more like a newspaper on this. So I'm starting with the page size, right? Like I am realizing like, oh, for the layout that I want to do and making this look kind of like a newspaper, I'm going to need like really big space.
You got that broad, it's called a broadsheet for a reason, right? Like,
yeah.
If you told me this was Mike Martens' design, I would have told you to shut your mouth. There's no way I would have believed. Look at those little margins. And so
yeah. Well, and that's exactly right. Like a lot of my work is known for like having really wide, expansive margins, especially like Tourist Hole was like really pushing it to the extreme. That's a single column. It's 1-to-1. The total margin space is the same as the content space. But yeah, there's reasons why I did that. And for this, like it needs to look and feel like a newspaper. And again, going back to like, what are the things that we want people to feel as they are experiencing the book, right? Like I want you to feel a little bit more like claustrophobic. I want to feel like you to feel like it's overloaded. I was using that like the language of like grimy and like like kind of surreal. Like I want you to feel like you are walking a weird line in between reality and whatever is like a very like Lovecraftian, Eldritchian kind of like occulty kind of experience of like nothing is quite right. Everything's a little bit odd. So yeah, like I am pulling things pretty directly from these inspirations. Doing these vertical lines, doing this like spot art with like occulty weird stuff, and like even like I'm recreating ads and like reforming them within the world of Arkham Herald, that kind of thing. So yeah, playing around with that, like playing around with different styles on how the art works. But again, like if you look at it, like I think you can see like this is the line here. Like I'm even looking at like what are the kinds of fonts they're using, these geometric sans serifs here from a font perspective. I love Future, so it's going to be Future. But then for headlines, I'm using something that's a little bit like more chunky and flavorful. I think this might even be Futura. But then looking at Oz, like they do a lot of like juicier fonts and typefaces. So trying to use some of that to kind of like give that like weight and like juiciness to the stories.
Well, and Arkham Herald is it's juicy, it's nasty, it's vicious. Like like the tone you're catching here is so spot on for it. Like it's really cool to see this DNA. I also don't know, like I'm sure in the Gauntlet they've shared some screenshots. It's really cool to like get to see some of these for the first time.
Y'all are getting like an exclusive here. I don't think any of this has even been in the Discord for what it's worth. So,
sneaky peeks. It's so good. Even that the lower page, like that shift into the two, like the two column mode, like such a good breakup, like of the text, and I love the way that it's highlighting what is below it and allowing you to do something entirely different in that same space is really satisfying.
Right. And that's like we talked about, right? Like this is, I don't know, let's check. Is this just formally 3 columns? Oh, I don't know what's going on with this. Oh my God. Oh, I know. Since we're not in the document, that's why this is the slide layout. But yeah, like that's the advantage of doing the 3 column format, right? Like I don't always need it to be 3 columns, but yeah.
Retrofit just said I'm scared that my thumb is covering words, and that is a thing you have literally said to me in the past on World. And so but also that's how you read a newspaper. Like when you read a newspaper, you got to put your hand over some words somewhere. Like that's just the reality of it.
Well, and then this, right, like going back to like what is the physical form factor of this? Like this is going to be a big book that is going to be like, it's going to sit wide open. So it's not so much that I will be like holding it as I'm sitting in a side chair and probably reading it at a table. If I am, it's a little bit more designed for that like play experience. But yeah, that's a choice, right? Like there's not, I think a lot of times out of like, when I've done seminars or workshops on anything, people want the best. And when I was doing photography workshops, that's what people would ask is like, what is the best camera? And there's not like, or what is the best lens? There's not really a best one. There's a lot of different factors that go into this. So I think that's like to kind of like bring it back around to that, the initial idea of like, what are we stealing? Whatever is best, like be reflective, like go, and I would say especially like go outside of, like I did with Arkham Herald, like go outside of TTRPGs. It's good for me to look at TTRPGs, like even with this, right? Like as I pick that 3 column format, I know that that's also kind of like a reference to the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons like format, that like I am like using this, but like I'm not, where I'm really trying to draw the inspiration is outside of the tabletop RPG space, because that's where the unique, new, rare stuff is going to be. You know that your audience hasn't seen anything quite like it when you're stealing something from a space that they don't frequent in. One of the things I think in the version 1 of this, when we get to version 1.0 of this presentation, I've been thinking about doing the item scale that is in video games of like gray, green, blue, purple, arcane, yellow, or whatever. Right. And like just kind of like laying out like, yeah, like as you move further from the space that you're working in, that layout or that design is getting more exceptional, more rare, more like juicy and interesting to people. But then also thinking, again, to go back to the Arkham Herald example here, thinking about like, what is it that people still are going to tether to and kind of use as their like guidepost, and to know like, this is still, they're doing a lot of weird stuff with the layout on this, but it still feels like it belongs in this space, is the tricky balance that we're going for. So yeah, that is what I have. Like, oh, sorry. I should have told you that I was going to do that. Oh,
we weren't prepared. People saw into the back end of the universe. They know.
But yeah, like that's kind of what I have prepared, and that was your kind of initiation into the Layout Rogues Guild.
Yeah. What are guild dues like? That's the real question.
Well, you're stealing your dues, so free essentially.
You gotta lay out a book,
Yeah.
or die. No, that's great. If anyone has any questions, this is a great time to drop them into the chat. Otherwise, we're gonna end pretty shortly. I also hit the up button too many times on my
Oh.
my thing again. Is it? Okay, cool. It's back. The my computer's getting tired and sleepy. Um, Generally speaking, not because of the length of the stream. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, let us know. We dropped some links along the way while you're thinking about your questions. A couple things you can do if you want to support us, or a couple good things to know about, is we've got a year-long jam for PBTA moves called the Hard Moves, or called the Make Moves Jam. You can go to ttrpg.link/make moves to check that out. We had Aaron King do a nice little zine about making moves in the PBTA style, and we've been doing a monthly interview series. We'll be back tomorrow night talking to Sam Roberts, creator of Dino Island, one of our favorite early PBTA games, about that. If John Harper's still in the chat, John, we should get you on it sometime. I will message you about it either way. But I would love to have you on. We've had the Bakers on and a whole bunch of other folks, but it's a year-long focus in focusing on this particular moment in time and creating moves to represent that, because it's a weird time to be alive right now, and we think PBTA moves are a great way to explore life and design. So you can go check all that out. And we'll be at Gamma this week. If you're a real weird business person in the game space, we'll be at Gamma. If you're not a weird person, you're going to be at Gamma. Come say hi also too. That is the Game Manufacturers Trade Expo. It is a B2B retail con thing that publishers do. This is our last ZiMo workshop, but we do have another workshop coming up that we had planned to do during this month called Contractual Considerations. We're going to have Noah Downs on for that. Just had some scheduling issues over the month, but looking at things that freelancers should consider in their agreements and publishers should consider in theirs to keep everybody on the same page and focused. But if you liked this workshop, I want to shout out Mike's Everything You Wanted to Know About Layout But Were Afraid to Ask workshop we did previously on the stream. Mike has also done a breakdown of the Wassailing layout that was really, really great, if you want to go check that out also too. And then we did one on book maps with Kyle Latino, which was also a really great basic tool to help getting things laid out also too. So a lot of great stuff that we've had going on. Please feel free to check it. If you want to follow more stuff like this, our YouTube channel is a great place to go. Mike is the creator of a bunch of great titles. We mentioned the Wassailing also. Mike, and we've done a lot to cover the tourist hole already, but I would love for you to just give people that pitch again for people, because we've talked about it a little bit. Can you tell us what the tourist hole, your most recent title, is?
It was, I was on vacation with some game designers, and we were trying to find a game to play after visiting House on the Rock, Circus World, just crazy places. And we were worn out, and everything was 3 hours that we had. So I said, is there a way that we could kind of make a game that lasts maybe 15 minutes? But then we can play as long as we need to. That's kind of where Tour Soul came from. It's based on, for like the crowd that's watching this, it's based on ship captain crew mechanics. You have little flyers. You create very quickly disposable characters, enter these weird tourist traps, tourist attractions, answer prompts, and try and escape by using your dice rolls. Most tourists are doomed, but some will survive. But just a fun kind of like party game, TTRPG. I think that's something we're starting to see pop up more and more as people are thinking about like, what are the forms that are more playable and playable anywhere? And so there's a pretty like malleable game that can be played in a lot of different ways, whether you are on the road and don't have a tabletop, or are sitting at a bar and have some bar dice.
Yeah, it really straddles the line between RPG, LARP, and board game in some really cool ways also too. I absolutely love it. It's been my game obsession for this year. It is one of our top 10 best-selling items, I think, for Q4 at least, for sure, because that's when it was out. But it has been incredibly satisfying, and it was supposed to be like a 32-page zine, and then I ruined it for Mike, and it ended up being significantly longer because I said, "What if you did more of your cool layout?" and then Mike did, and it was really great. So you can check that out over on the Plus One EXP site. Also, if you want to support us, RPG Zine Club is a great way to do that. You can go to RPGZine.Club and check that out. We also have 4 new titles that released this month: Heir of Swords, 86, Bear Witness, and the Soothe Warden's Quick Start as part of our Zine Month bundle. Because we aren't funding anything, that's not true. We are funding a thing, but we mostly just released things. But we do a lot during Zine Month also too, so you can go check that out over there. Cool. And we've got a question in from Odds and Ends, Emily. Do you do the same setup for long/big projects as for small one, or do you cheat on all the smaller, quicker things?
It's a good question. I personally, I think it's a pretty similar process when it comes down to it. But that's also maybe why even my small stuff ends up being big, is because then I've got a system that I can use, and so I just use it. That said, the big stuff is the stuff that has formal documentation, because I get paid for doing the formal design system documentation, and that makes it more valuable to the publishers that I'm working with. It's something that I'm always learning as well. Like, I am developing the skill. I think like Sunken is a book that's really beautifully laid out, but like it's if you saw behind the hood on that one, it's wild. And so like I'm learning as I go. I think maybe that's again like just kind of advocating for the idea of like stealing stuff, of like I knew that I'd looked at stuff and was like, oh, I wanted it to look like this. I want this kind of format. And I just recreated it the way that I knew how at that time. Now, I have done newspaper layout for a long time, so it wasn't that alien to me. But that said, like I'm learning a lot more of the technical stuff. So figuring out how to, even in a small project, like do this stuff pretty efficiently and just like lock it in. And I think it's especially nice on smaller projects to build out these like micro systems, because with a small project, you don't want to spend a lot of time on it. And so it is nice to be able to be like, okay, I've got my 3 heading sizes. I'm just going to lean into those 3 heading sizes, and I can just like, use them in different ways, set the colors. If I want to change the color, I don't have to redo the book completely. But yeah, it kind of comes down to, again, like make those critical choices as early as you can, because it doesn't matter if it's small or big. It's going to get effed up if you decide to change it later.
Also, you end up with a good amount of layout work on your plate, but I also know one of the things you've been doing lately, and if you don't want to do this, you just say no to people later, but one of the things you've done for some of our team members has been like do consults on bigger projects. Also, where you'll come in and help develop that design system and some masters and other stuff, give them some feedback and input, and then release them to do a lot of the legwork. So I would encourage people like if you are interested in the type of stuff Mike's talking about, feel overwhelmed by it, like don't think you can necessarily afford Mike, which you should reach out anyways and always ask. But pulling Mike in for a consult on those things are great. Again, want to shout out, there's other great people. Emily, who's in the chat, is one of them. Like, we've had them do layout for us. Luna P, whose name came up, also too, like absolutely tremendous. There are tons of really competent layout folks out there in the community. And again, just starting to look for, here are the things I like. Here are the things I'm looking for. One of the things we regularly comment on are how beautiful the books at Plus One are. The art is a huge part of that, but I actually think we put a lot more emphasis on layout than a lot of other publishers do. Work with a really wide variety of really talented folks, and there are tons of people out there. Also, I have never learned how to do my own layout. I am good at compositioning, which is why I could tell that there were 6 or 12 columns on the thing. And I do thumbnailing, right? Which is an important part of layout when we need to get a lot of ideas rapidly done, but I have never mastered the technical skills for how to do it. But I will go through and do book maps. I will go through and do compositioning. Learning those basic tools and then finding great people to work with will always advance the craft of your like products. And so I just want to encourage people to get out there and take a look.
I think especially like I will like echo there, like understanding how these things are built and being able to kind of being able to take a ruler, you could have done it before. Maybe you did it before as well, but like just using that tool to kind of dissect things, you'll realize how little art has to do with good layout. There's this whole other aspect of information design and where information is placed and how consistent it is. But yeah, like I think the more that you think about like how is this thing built aside from the art, the more you're going to be able to make like really cool looking stuff with whatever art you have. Like Gontijo is a good example of another designer, layout designer, who just does a lot of like, it's just pulling a lot of like public domain or archival artwork and kind of reformatting it. It's a lot of times collage, sometimes it's just direct, but like the system of the layout is really what's at the heart of it, and how it's laid out. So you don't have to lean on the art as much when you have these kind of like structures in place. And it gives a lot of opportunity for the art, as you've seen with the color palette, with like how it's laid out on the page, all of that.
Which is not to diminish the importance of really great art also too, but they are.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's great when you have great tools. We've got somebody who said, sorry if this is too vague of a question, but could you speak a little more about matching the vibes of a project to existing layout examples that you might look for to reference? That is a pretty high level, broad question. But I think you talked about this a little bit in the 101. Like you're kind of always on the hunt for like what you're going to steal. Like your brain just kind of looks for it a lot of the time. But I think talking about, because you did that shot from Ray Gun earlier. And that feels like a really easy thing to talk around, because I do know a little bit about how you've mined some of the vibes you wanted for for Ray Gun. Didn't you? No, you shared a screenshot of Ray. Was that not a screenshot of Ray Gun?
Yes, yeah. There's a screenshot of Planet Ray Gun.
So do you? That may be an easy one to talk around specifically within that.
I'm looking off because the stuff that I stole from Ray is not stuff that I pulled down into my general vicinity. But here, can I do the between? Can I stick on that?
Yeah, that works.
So I'm, as Tony said, like I'm always like digging around. When I know that it's a project that I'm working on, like I'm going into bookshops and I am like, or that I'm a project that I'm going to work on or I anticipate working or wanting to work on, I'm digging around for things that are similar. So this is actually Spirits of the Otherworld. Is a cult cocktail book, and I was like, oh cool, a cult cocktail that kind of has a betweeny vibe. And then you will see this book. I can zoom in here too. If you remember from the design system, there was a lot of this like cell work, and it felt to me like, oh, it's kind of got like the stained glass, like Victorian kind of vibe to it. And so that's literally, and the font was kind of similar too. This is literally like how I pulled that. And I just started like dissecting it and kind of figuring out what's going to be a pain to use, what's going to be like efficient to use. So I didn't necessarily use these like indentations because I was like, that's a lot. But a lot of this is like stuff that's pulled. Now that said, it's not the only thing. So I had also really, and this is something that I had just like found before I knew I was working on the game, is just design that I thought was like pretty cool here. And this is a journal, magazine, whatever you want to call it, called The Unseasonal. And they had a section on Bram Stoker's Dracula that's just beautifully laid out, as you can see. It looks not too far. Showing dirty secrets. And so this is something that I had just like identified as like, I really think this layout is like really cool, really classy. I don't know what I would use it for before I got attached to the between, but I just kind of knew that I wanted to use some of these concepts here. So big margins, these kind of like black title pages that then shift to the black on white content pages, and the way the navigation is working, especially on these pages, I thought was really neat. That it is, let me see if I can zoom in here enough that you all can see maybe not. That's really going to be really tiny, but the page numbers are along the side here, and the navigation is set a little bit. The navigation elements are set up a little bit. I'm talking like a UX designer right now.
I mean, you were
Set up a
talking
little
like a
bit
UX
higher.
designer the whole way through, because you are.
So yeah, like that's. I think that's kind of maybe that's yeah. You can give me a little bit of clarity of if there's something to dig in on there, but like this is an example of like how I am kind of like scouting ahead of time for things that I just think are really cool, where this is an example of something that I'm picking up because I'm looking specifically for that type of thing. And I am then taking those things and kind of like merging and binding them together into a new concept. Yeah. So that's kind of how I'm making it its own, making it not be something that's completely stolen. This is another. If you're in the Discord, the Gauntlet Discord, you know about the game Pizza Time. And this is a thing that I had picked up just because I thought it was cool, this free pizza magazine. Before I had any idea that this is a publication that I would be attached to. And I was just like, this is a cool thing. So I'm just going to.
Holy crap, that is
giant.
Super fun.
It's amazing. And so this has been, we were at a writer's retreat, Gauntlet writer's retreat, and I was just talking to Harold, who did the layout for Brindlewood Bay, and Alex and Jason, and we were talking about Pizza Time, and I was like, oh, I've got this thing that we could like really like lean into. And then again, like I started picking up, like I was doing more research, right? So I was grabbing more like pizza zines, looking at like pizza menus, all of that kind of thing, and just grabbing what are the elements that I think are cool about these things. What are the things like this ended up being too clean of a layout? What's messy? What's fitting the themes of what the game actually is? But we kind of like talked through it and landed on something I think you guys are really going to like what's going on with Pizza Time when it comes out. But yeah, like, so it's a mix of things. This is something that I haven't used yet. But like, this is silver ink on black paper. And so I saw this and I was like, oh, that is really super cool. I really like the way that this, like, the titling is working, which I think would be really useful in TTRPGs. Let me zoom in a little bit on that one. Have I used this? Maybe something does use this that I've done recently. But yeah, so this kind of like,
I love
this
that.
kind of like the way that information is all held in that, especially like this is effectively a bestiary. And so like it's designed to do a very similar thing to what we're doing in TTRPGs. I guess that's something that I would also recommend is like look at things that are outside of TTRPGs that do similar things. So I think one of the hot things to talk about these days is cookbooks, because cookbooks are doing a very similar thing to what we're doing in tabletop role-playing game design, where you want somebody to be able to read something at the table and get a recipe out of it. Nope, I didn't. There's not good recipe layout in this. Never did. And so they're using it to read and to kind of scout things and get a feeling for the dish. But then they also have to use it when they're cooking, when they're at a table and doing additional like actual work. So like it's a cool format. So just looking at different things, publications that might be good fits for what we do. This is a really cool food magazine called F. If you ever find issues of this, grab them. They are extraordinary. There's a lot of different layout ideas in these. And yeah, again, like as I'm flipping through things, especially as I'm thinking about tabletop role-playing games, I'm thinking about like, oh, this is really nice, like capsuled information, which is a thing that we do in TTRPGs. And so that's something that I can steal and sort of like reform it and have it be, potentially an avenue for some project.
It all comes back to beer and pizza. I did drop the Bestiary, the Anthropocene in the link because it's doing kind of the reverse of what you're talking about, where it's looking at things that are commonly in RPGs. and bring another sensibility to it also too.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
like that's super cool. I'm gonna go pick it up. Also, if anybody doesn't know, the Anthropocene is our current cultural epoch. So this is a weird modern like bestiary that is like yeah. I just it's a super fun concept. Also, yeah, those headers are tingling my brain a little bit also too. So it all comes back to beer and pizza though for Mike.
And I guess like Planet Raygun, now everybody's doing color borders, but like this was the source for me. Like I saw this in this particular magazine with this like neon green border. And again, like I'm seeing this capsuled information. I'm seeing how there's a lot of cool things that fit on the page. And I was like, I just want to do that. And now everybody's doing it. But it was, yeah. And I think I did use that in Dark Designs because and I kind of did a variant of it. So I was playing with different colors on it. Like now that everybody's doing it, how can I switch it up and make it feel unique and different? Yeah, effectively fence that layout.
Yeah. I will also throw out if this stream has caught your interest. Will, if you're still watching, if you want to drop me the link to your Twitch channel, I will drop it in, but you send it to me on Discord because otherwise you'll get blocked. But Will has been doing cover breakdowns for people who have works in progress on Monday nights, and it's been super tremendous to watch. Like it's really great to see all the different types of content. But if not, go follow Will Yob's Twitch channel. Like watching the cover breakdowns has been really cool. It's been a great kind of community event. It's been really cool to see different like forms of feedback and has built on a lot of this kind of stuff too. I think all of them are also archived over on Will's channel, and if they have YouTube, maybe that goes there also too. But yeah, there's been a lot of really great stuff. So these kind of things are like catching your eye. Like if you want to think more about this is great. Also, if you don't have if you're like, I can't afford to buy all these cool books, that's fine. When I go to a bookstore, which I do, I go to bookstores. Like taking your phone and just taking pictures of the things that catch your eye and creating a collection of them is equally useful because you're using them as visual reference. You won't necessarily be able to measure them, but take your ruler to the bookstore with you. You're in the Layout Rogues Guild. You gotta keep that ruler with you all the time. But yeah, it's there's been just a lot of really tremendous stuff. Again, if you if people want to follow you, Mike, and know and like sit at your feet and drink from your font of wisdom, what is the best way for them to keep up to everything you've got going
on? For now, it's clearkeep.beastguide.social or whatnot. Whatever those standard. Yeah, I got it. And I'm looking at doing a newsletter. So yeah, like I think similar. Like if you think any of this is interesting, I've got a really big like visual reference library that I've built up over decades. And so I've been thinking about to kind of jump off that point of like, this is something that I love, it's really passionate about, and so I invest in, but like that's not something everyone has the opportunity to. I also have like have the bookstore from Heat. The movie is 2 blocks away. I've got an art bookstore, a cooking bookstore. Like there's a lot of like these weird bookstores. So I have access to a lot of things that other folks don't. So I've been thinking about doing a series that essentially just measures these different books and kind of looks at them and sees what they're doing and that kind of thing from my own library. So if that's something that's interesting, like pop me a note. Talking about doing a newsletter and maybe a YouTube thing. But yeah, definitely follow me on Blue Sky.
Cool. Awesome. I don't know when the next time we'll do something like this is, but we do have streams every Wednesday. Typically, we will be doing our Show Me Your Moves with Sam Roberts this Wednesday. We are taking next week off because we'll be at Gamma that I already talked about earlier next week, and then we'll be back with our Intrepid Merchants show. If you want to check out one of those other great shows, we had Mike on to talk about Tourist Hole and go through the mechanics on that for our Procedures and Play series. But every Wednesday, we basically have a different type of show that focuses on design or the industry or playing games and other fun stuff that we like to do. We are on a hiatus this month, weirdly, from it, but we've got a great format called Now You've Seen It, where we have two creators sit down and read each other's games and then look for moments of resonance and disconnect and then interview each other about them. Also, it's been one of my favorite streams to go to. So, yeah, all that kind of stuff. This is the end. I don't know why I'm struggling so much to just be done. Do we have a good sign off? Do we have like a salute for the Rogues Guild or a secret password we should say at the end of all meetings?
Everyone should say our motto.
Which is
our motto.
3, 2, 1. We
steal.
See you